My dear brothers and sisters, we live in a time where people are easily offended, easily angered, and constantly disturbed by the actions of others. A word hurts us, a message bothers us, a look annoys us, and before we know it, our peace is gone. But ask yourself, who is controlling your heart? You or the people around you? Today, let us reflect on 6 powerful habits. Today, let us reflect on 6 powerful habits. If you truly hold on to them, you will find a calmness within yourself that nothing and no one can shake. Control your reactions, not people. You will never be able to control what people say, what they do, or how they behave. But you can always control how you respond. When someone disrespects you, you have 2 choices: react with anger or respond with dignity. Remember, strength is not in shouting louder. Strength is in holding back when you have every right to react. Detach your peace from others' behavior. If your happiness depends on how people treat you, you will always be a prisoner. People change. People disappoint. People misunderstand. So anchor your peace somewhere higher. Anchor it in your connection with Allah, because when your heart is connected to Him, the noise of people becomes small. Practice silence and patience. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every comment deserves a reply. Sometimes the best response is silence. Silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. And patience is not just tahmil, endurance, it is trusting that Allah sees everything, even what you choose to ignore. Remember accountability before Allah. Before you respond in anger, pause and ask yourself, is this pleasing to Allah? One day we will stand before Him, not with our excuses, but with our actions. That moment of anger you gave into, was it worth it? Or would it have been better to hold back for His sake? Let go of ego and forgive. Often many of our problems come from one thing: ego. I was right, they should apologize first. How dare they? But ask yourself, what is more valuable? Winning the argument or protecting your heart? Forgiveness is not for them, it is for you. When you forgive, you free yourself from carrying the burden of anger. Trust Allah's plan in every situation. Sometimes people hurt you, betray you, or disappoint you in ways you never expected. But nothing happens without the permission of Allah. Maybe that person was removed from your life for a reason. Maybe that difficulty is shaping you into someone stronger. So instead of asking, why me? Say, Ja Allah, I trust you. My dear brothers and sisters, a peaceful heart is a gift. And it is a gift you must protect. Not everyone deserves access to your emotions. Not everything deserves your reaction. Rise above the noise. Choose patience over anger. Choose silence over unnecessary conflict. Choose silence over unnecessary conflict. Choose Allah over everything. And when you do that, you will walk through life with a heart that is calm, strong, and unshaken, no matter what happens around you. May Allah grant us hearts full of peace, patience, and sincerity. Ameen. One of the greatest struggles we face in life is the urge to control people. What they say, how they act, and how they treat us. But the reality is simple. You will never be able to control others, no matter how hard you try. People have their own minds, their own emotions, their own ways of thinking. If you tie your peace to their behavior, you will live a life of constant frustration. The real power, the real strength lies not in controlling them, but in mastering yourself. When someone speaks harshly to you, your immediate reaction might be to respond in the same way, to defend yourself, to prove a point. But pause for a moment and reflect. Is every reaction necessary? Is every response beneficial? Sometimes the situation is not testing your ability to reply, it is testing your ability to remain composed. Anyone can react, anyone can lose control, but very few can hold themselves back when emotions are high. That is where true strength lies. Understand that your reaction is a choice. It may not feel like it in the moment because emotions can be overwhelming, but with practice, you begin to realize that there is always a space between what happens to you and how you respond. In that small space lies your freedom. If you allow anger to take over, you hand that freedom to someone else. But if you choose calmness, patience, and dignity, you take that control back. Think about how often regret follows anger. A few seconds of uncontrolled emotion can lead to words that damage relationships, create distance, and leave a mark that is hard to erase. You might win the argument, but lose something far more valuable: respect, trust, or even your own inner peace. So before you react, ask yourself, is this worth it? Is this response going to bring me closer to what is right, or pull me further away? There is also a deeper level to this. When you control your reaction, you are not just managing a situation, you are training your soul, you are teaching yourself discipline. You are reminding your heart that it does not need to be shaken by every external trigger. Over time, this builds a kind of strength that people cannot take away from you. You become less affected by negativity, less disturbed by criticism, less bothered by things that once upset you so easily. This does not mean you become silent in the face of injustice or allow people to walk over you. It means you respond with wisdom instead of impulse. You choose the right moment, the right words, and the right tone. You act rather than react. There is a difference. One is driven by emotion, the other by intention. Also, remember, not every comment deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Sometimes people speak out of ignorance, sometimes out of their own pain, and sometimes simply because they do not know better. If you respond to everything, you will exhaust yourself. But if you learn to let certain things pass, you protect your peace. A calm response has a powerful effect. It diffuses tension, it disarms negativity, and it reflects a level of maturity that words alone cannot express. People may forget what was said, but they will remember how you carried yourself. And more importantly, you will feel the difference within yourself, a sense of control, a sense of clarity, a sense of peace. So train yourself to pause, train yourself to think before you speak, train yourself to respond in a way that you will not regret later. Because in the end, your strength is not measured by how strongly you react, but by how strongly you react, but by how beautifully you restrain yourself when it matters the most. One of the most liberating realizations a person can come to is that their peace should never be tied to the behavior of others. As long as your emotional state depends on how people treat you, speak to you, or think about you, you will always feel unsettled. People are unpredictable. They change, they make mistakes, they misunderstand, and sometimes they disappoint without even realizing it. If your happiness rises and falls based on them, then your heart will constantly be in a state of instability. Think about how often a single comment can ruin your entire day. Someone says something insensitive, ignores you, or treats you in a way you did not expect, and suddenly your mood shifts. You replay their words in your mind, you overthink their intentions, and without realizing it, you give them control over your emotions. But the truth is, they may have moved on within seconds, while you are still carrying the weight of that moment. This is what happens when your peace is attached to people. It becomes fragile. Detaching your peace does not mean you stop caring about others or become cold and distant. It means you care, but wisely. It means you understand that people are human and human beings are imperfect. They will not always meet your expectations. When you accept this reality, you stop demanding perfection from others, and in doing so, you protect your own heart from unnecessary hurt. There is a deeper beauty in placing your emotional reliance on something greater than people. When your heart is connected to Allah, you begin to see things differently. You realize that the opinions of people do not define your worth. Their approval is not what gives you value. And their criticism, as painful as it may feel, does not diminish who you are in the sight of your Creator. This shift in perspective changes everything. When someone praises you, you are grateful but not dependent. When someone criticizes you, you reflect but do not crumble. When someone mistreats you, you respond with dignity rather than letting it shake your inner state. Why? Because your peace is rooted in something stable, something constant, something that does not fluctuate like human behavior does. Often we expect people to give us what only Allah can truly provide: complete understanding, constant support, and unwavering kindness. But people get tired, people get distracted, people have their own struggles. When they fall short, we feel hurt, not because they intended to harm us, but because we place too much expectation on them. When you reduce these expectations and redirect your reliance, you begin to feel a sense of relief. You are no longer waiting for people to act a certain way in order for you to feel okay. There is also strength in learning to let things go. Not every action needs to be analyzed. Not every word needs to be taken personally. Sometimes people speak from their own pain, their own stress, or their own misunderstandings. If you take everything to heart, you will carry burdens that were never meant for you. But if you learn to release, to overlook, and to move forward, you lighten your emotional load. Your peace is precious. It is not something that should be handed over to anyone who comes into your life. Protect it. Guard it. Be mindful of what you allow to disturb it. You cannot stop people from being who they are, but you can decide how much access they have to your inner state. When you finally detach your peace from others, you begin to experience a calmness that is difficult to describe. Situations that once disturbed you no longer have the same effect. You become more focused, more balanced, and more at ease. You still feel, you still care, but you are no longer shaken by every wave. And that is true freedom when your heart remains steady, not because people have changed, but because you have. In a world where everyone feels the need to respond instantly, to defend themselves immediately, and to have the last word, there is something incredibly powerful about choosing silence and patience. It is not easy. In fact, it goes against the impulse within us. When someone provokes you, misunderstands you, or speaks unfairly, your instinct is to react, to correct them, to make sure your voice is heard. But not every situation benefits from your words, and not every moment requires your reaction. Silence is often misunderstood. People think that staying quiet means you are weak, that you have nothing to say, or that you have accepted defeat. But in reality, silence can be a sign of deep strength. It shows that you have control over yourself, that you are not driven by impulse, and that you value your peace or than proving a point. Sometimes remaining silent in a heated moment is far more powerful than delivering the perfect response. Think about how many conflicts escalate simply because both sides feel the need to speak. One word leads to another, and before long, a small issue becomes something much bigger. If one person had chosen silence, the situation might have ended before it even began. Silence has the ability to diffuse tension, to calm emotions, and to prevent regret. Because once words are spoken, they cannot be taken back. They leave an astar, an impact, even if you apologize later. Patterns goes hand in hand with silence. It is not just about holding your tongue, but about controlling what is happening within your heart. You may be silent outwardly, but if your heart is boiling with anger, then the struggle is still there. True patience is andema tasbut nafsak internally and externally. It is when you feel the urge to react, but you choose to remain calm for a higher reason. You remind yourself that not every discomfort needs to be expressed, and not every injustice needs an immediate response. There is a special kind of reward in holding back for the sake of Allah. When you choose patience, you are not ignoring the situation, you are elevating it. You are saying, I could respond, but I choose not to, because I know Allah sees, Allah knows, and Allah will deal with what I leave. This mindset brings a deep sense of peace. You are no longer carrying the burden of proving yourself to people because you trust that your silence is understood by the one who matters most. It is also important to recognize that timing matters. Silence does not mean you never speak. It means you choose the right moment to speak. There are times when addressing an issue calmly later on can be far more effective than reacting in the heat of the moment. When emotions settle, words become clearer, intentions become purer, and the chances of resolving the matter improve. But when you react instantly, your words are often shaped by anger, and anger rarely leads to wisdom. Patience is something that grows over time. It is not developed overnight. Every time you resist the urge to respond harshly, every time you choose to stay calm when you feel provoked, you are strengthening this quality within yourself. It becomes easier with practice. What once felt impossible slowly becomes natural. And with that, you begin to notice a change, not just in how you ta'amal with others, but in how you feel within yourself. You become less reactive, less anxious, less affected by the noise around you. Situations that once disturbed your entire day now pass without leaving a heavy mark. You begin to experience a quiet strength, a steady calmness that others can sense even if you say nothing. And often your silence speaks louder than words ever could. So learn to pause, learn to hold back, learn to hold back. Learn to give yourself the space to think before you speak. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. One of the most powerful ways to control your anger and protect your peace is to constantly remind yourself that you are accountable before Allah. Every word you speak, every reaction you show, every moment of anger you act upon, it is all recorded, it is all known, and it will all be brought forward one day. When this awareness settles deeply in your heart, it begins to change how you respond to people and situations. In moments of anger, we often feel justified. We tell ourselves, I have the right to react, or they deserve this response. And perhaps from a human perspective, you are right. Maybe you were wronged, maybe you were disrespected, maybe you were treated unfairly. But the question is not just whether you are right. The question how you choose to express that right, because even in moments where you are justified, you are still being tested. Imagine standing before Allah and being asked about a moment where you lost control, not about what was done to you, but about what you chose to do in response. That harsh word, that insult, that reaction driven by anger, was it worth it? Was it something you would confidently present on that day? Or would you wish you had held back, even if just for a few seconds longer? When you live with this awareness, something shifts within you. You begin to pause before reacting. You start asking yourself questions you never asked before. Is this pleasing to Allah? Will this earn His rida or His displeasure? Is my anger leading me towards something good or pulling me into regret? These questions create a barrier between you and impulsive reactions. They slow you down. And in that pause, you often find a better way to respond. It is important to remember that anger itself is not the problem. It is a natural emotion. Even the best of people felt anger. But what matters is what you do with it. Do you allow it to control your tongue, your actions, your decisions? Or do you control it, channel it, and restrain it for the sake of Allah? The difference between these two paths is avim. One leads to regret, broken relationships, and inner unrest. The other leads to reward, respect, and the qalbing at peace. There is also a beautiful concept in knowing that when you restrain yourself for the sake of Allah, you are not losing anything. In fact, you are gaining something far greater. You may feel like you let something go in that moment. You let go of a response, a reaction, a force to prove your point. But in reality, you are earning reward. You are elevating your status and you are strengthening your relationship with your Creator. Sometimes we are so focused on proving ourselves to people that we forget about our standing with Allah. We want the last word. We want to be seen as right. We want others to acknowledge us. But what if instead you focused on how Allah sees you in that moment? What if your priority was not winning the argument, but pleasing Him? This shift in intention changes everything. It softens your reactions, refines your character, and brings a sense of purpose to your self-control. Also remember, Allah is fully aware of what you go through. He sees the zalam, the unfair treatment, the words that hurt you, the situations that test your patience. Nothing is hidden from Him. So when you choose to respond with restraint, it is not as though your haki is lost. Rather, you are placing your trust in the most just of all. You are saying, Ya Allah, I leave this for you. And there is no greater justice than His. Living with a sense of accountability brings a deep noise of peace. You are no longer reacting blindly. You are moving with intention. You are aware that every moment is an opportunity to either draw closer to Allah or distance yourself from Him. And when that awareness becomes part of your daily life, your anger begins to fade, your reactions become calmer, and your heart becomes more settled. Because in the end, it is not about how people see you. It is about how you stand before Allah. One of the heaviest burdens a person can carry without even realizing it is the burden of ego. It quietly shapes the way we react, the way we think, and the way we deal with others. When someone says something that hurts us, it is often not just the words themselves, it is how those words affect our sense of pride. We feel disrespected, overlooked, or challenged, and the ego immediately rises, demanding a response. It wants to defend, to prove, to win. But in doing so, it often pulls us into conflict, anger, and emotional exhaustion. If you reflect deeply, many arguments are not really about truth or justice. They are about ego. Why did they say that to me? Who do they think they are? I need to show them. These thoughts fuel reactions that we later regret. Because in that moment, it is not wisdom guiding you. It is your ego trying to protect an image you have of yourself. And the more you feed it, the stronger it becomes until it begins to control you. Letting go of ego does not mean you become weak or allow Nasas to take advantage of you. It means you stop making everything personal. Not every disagreement is an attack on your worth. Not every criticism is meant to bring you down. Sometimes people speak without thinking. Sometimes they are dealing with their own struggles. And sometimes they simply see things dark. Apparently, when your ego is in control, you interpret everything as a threat. But When you rise above it, you begin to see things with clarity. There is a quiet strength in choosing not to respond just to protect your pride. You may have the perfect comeback, the perfect argument, the perfect way to prove your point, but you choose silence or calmness instead. Not because you cannot respond, but because you understand that not every situation deserves your energy. This kind of restraint is powerful. It shows that your self-worth is not so fragile that it needs constant validation from others. Forgiveness is deeply connected to this. Holding on to grudges is often a sign that the ego is still active, still holding on to the pain, still waiting for an apology or acknowledgement. But the longer you hold on to it, the heavier it becomes. It affects your thoughts, your mood, your peace. You replay situations in your mind, you imagine different outcomes, and all of this drains you. Meanwhile, the person you are upset with may have moved on completely. Forgiving someone does not mean what they did was acceptable. It does not mean you forget or allow the same behavior to continue. It means you choose to release the emotional burden from your heart. You are no longer carrying their mistake within you. You are no longer allowing their actions to disturb your inner peace. This is not weakness, this is freedom. When you forgive, you are doing it for yourself first. You are clearing space in your heart for calmness, for positivity, for clarity. And there is also something greater. You are doing it for the sake of Allah. When you forgive, even though you have the right to hold on, you are showing sincerity, humility, and trust that your reward lies with Him. It is also important to accept that you are not perfect either. Just as you want people to overlook your mistakes, you should be willing to overlook theirs. This creates a balance in your relationships. It softens your interactions and makes you more understanding. Instead of reacting harshly, you begin to approach situations with compassion. Letting go of ego and forgiving often transforms the way you experience life. You become lighter, calmer, less reactive. Situations that once triggered you no longer have the same hold on your heart. You are not constantly trying to prove yourself or defend your image. Instead, you are focused on maintaining your peace and your connection with Allah. And in that state, you realize something beautiful. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every hurt is worth holding on to. Sometimes the greatest victory is walking away with a heart that is still clean, still soft, and still at peace. One of the most powerful ways to free yourself from constant frustration, anger, and emotional disturbance is to truly trust in the plan of Allah, not just in words, but in a deep, settled conviction within your heart. Because many of the things that upset us in life are tied to expectations. How we thought things would go, how we expected people to behave, how we imagined outcomes to be. When reality unfolds differently, we feel disturbed. But what if you truly believed that every single moment is unfolding exactly as it is meant to? Sometimes people hurt you in ways you never expected. Someone you trusted disappoints you. Someone you helped turns against you. Someone you helped turns against you. Someone you valued walks away. In those moments, it is very easy to become angry, bitter, or even broken inside. You start questioning everything. Why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? But what if the question is not why, but what is Allah teaching me through this? Trusting Allah's plan does not mean you will never feel pain. It does not mean you will not be affected by what happens around you. You are human and emotions are part of your nature. But trust changes how deeply those emotions take root. It prevents them from consuming you. It reminds you that even when something feels wrong, there is a wisdom behind it that you may not yet see. There are moments in life where things fall apart in ways that seem completely unfair. Doors close suddenly. Opportunities disappear. Relationships end. And at that point, you feel like you have lost something important. But with time, you often look back and realize that what you thought was a loss was actually protection. That situation you were so attached to may have led you somewhere harmful. That person you could not imagine losing may not have been good for your qalb. That delay you were frustrated by may have been preparing you for something better. When you trust Allah, you stop reacting to every situation as if it is the end of the world. You begin to see life with a wider lens. You understand that this dunya is temporary and not everything will go according to your desires. And that is not a flaw in life. That is part of its design. It is a test of your patience, your iman, and your ability to remain steady even when things do not make sense. This kind of trust brings a deep sense of calm. When someone hurts you, instead of immediately reacting with anger, you pause and remind yourself that Allah allowed this to happen. not to break you, but to shape you. Maybe it is teaching you detachment. Maybe it is showing you the reality of people. Maybe it is guiding you back to Him. Whatever the reason, you begin to accept that there is wisdom behind it. It also frees you from the need to control everything. You do your best, you make your effort, but you leave the outcome to Allah. This removes a huge burden from your shoulders, because a lot of stress comes from trying to control results that were never in your control to begin with. When you let go of that, you feel lighter, you feel more at ease. Trusting Allah also helps you deal with zalam and unfairness. When someone wrongs you, you do not feel the need to immediately take revenge or prove your point. You know that Allah is just, and nothing escapes His knowledge. So instead of carrying anger in your heart, you place your trust in Him. You say, Ya Allah, you are sufficient for me. And that statement alone can bring a level of peace that no argument ever could. Over time, this trust transforms your personality. You become calmer, more patient, less reactive. Situations that once caused you stress no longer have the same impact. You still care, you still feel, but you are no longer shaken by every difficulty. There is a quiet strength within you, a confidence that whatever happens, you will be okay because Allah is in control. And when you reach that point, you begin to live differently. Not with constant worry, not with overwhelming anger, but with a qalb that is at rest, a heart that knows that even in chaos, there is a plan. Even in pain, there is wisdom. And even in loss, there is halal written for you. You just have to trust it. As we come to the end, take a moment to reflect on everything that has been said. These are not just habits to listen to and forget. They are principles to live by every single day. Because the truth is, anger will always exist, people will always test you, and life will never be free from challenges. But your strength lies in how you choose to rise above it all. When you learn to control your reactions, you take back your power. When you detach your peace from people, you free your heart. When you practice silence and patience, you protect yourself from regret. When you remember your accountability before Allah, you elevate your actions. When you let go of ego and forgive lighten your soul. And when you trust Allah's plan, you find a calmness that nothing can shake. This is how you build a qalb that is strong, steady, and at peace, no matter what happens around you. Do not expect perfection from yourself overnight. This is a journey. Some days you will succeed and some days you will struggle. But what matters is that you keep trying, you keep correcting yourself, and you keep turning back to Allah. Every small effort counts. Every moment you hold back for His sake is seen. Every time you choose patience over anger, you are growing. Remember, Halqa Kaika's strength is not in overpowering others, but in mastering yourself, not in always being right, but in doing what is right. Not in reacting to everything, but in knowing what deserves your response and what does not. So walk through life with intention. Guard your heart, protect your peace, and carry yourself in a way that reflects your faith, your values, and your trust in Allah. And if you can hold on to these habits sincerely, you will find that no person, no situation, and no difficulty will have the power to disturb your inner peace the way it once did. May Allah grant us hearts that are calm, patient, and always connected to Him. Ameen.